The premise of this book is that Brady Armstrong is in town for the premiere of his newest science fiction romance movie. No, really, sci-fi romance is Brady Armstrong's genre of choice. This is why they didn't make any movies based on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
Bess went to high school with Brady, and she really wants to see him again, so she breaks into the movie theater and hides inside his dressing room to meet him. Nancy and George play this off as a joke, like, ha ha, that Bess always doing silly things over guys. But I'm starting to get a little worried here. If Bess is willing to break multiple laws in order to meet guys, she has some major problems. Bess isn't the only one who's planning a surprise in Brady's dressing room, because a masked culprit shows up and starts attacking them. Brady runs away to get help, leaving the culprit alone to kidnap Bess. Nancy meets all of the various suspects. First is Simon Mueller, the sleazy Hollywood agent who manages Brady and his co-star, Deirdre McCullough. Simon treats everybody like little kids, and he dismisses Bess as a crazy stalker. Which is true, but it's not nice. The next suspect is Nicholas Falcone, the hot young guy who wants to stop the theater from being demolished next month. Nicholas and George instantly make a romantic connection, or at least she decides somebody with his dark eyes couldn't possibly be evil. Swoon. Nicholas mostly helps out with the investigation, except for the part where he gets into a fight with Bart Anderson, the theater's owner. Bart is so mad he moves the demolition up from a month to 3 days. So Bart's schedule is dictated by how much he dislikes teenagers. He must have a difficult life. Joseph Hughes, the elderly janitor, stumbles in. He tells everybody that he got a phone call from the kidnapper. The kidnapper said, they have Bess, and, if you don't stop the demolition, she's gonna, something bad. Die! Yeah, that's it. Call off the demolition, our Bess will die. Joseph keeps pausing to think in the middle of his sentences here, which makes it a little obvious he's making everything up as he goes along, but Nancy is nice enough to overlook his obvious guilt. This book is a tad repetitive. 4 story events repeat 3 times. First, Nancy and her friends search the theater. They don't find Bess, because if they did, the mystery would be over. Second, Nancy and her friends find evidence, like Bess's earring and her shoe. They get their hopes up that this will stop the demolition, but Bart Anderson and the police remain unconvinced that Bess is still inside the building. Third, the Hollywood characters go out of their way to be suspicious. Simon and Brady get into fights, and according to Brenda Carlton, Simon has staged fake kidnappings for publicity in the past. Nancy spends a fair amount of time cross-checking their alibis for every incident. Fourth, and most interestingly, the thing that repeats is that the culprit lures Nancy into traps. First time, the culprit drops a glass slide on her. Second time, the culprit lures George to the catwalk and unbolts it, which almost causes her to fall off. She gets saved by Nicholas, and now she has an even bigger crush on him than before. Uh-oh. The third time, the culprit lowers a movie screen on Nancy's head, knocking her unconscious. In my experience, most movie screens are against walls, making them easy to dodge, but I guess this one was floating in the middle of the theater for some reason. Either way, Nancy wakes up in the hospital with only 1 day left before the demolition. As a last-ditch effort, Nancy goes to Nicholas's apartment so she can interrogate him. As it turns out, Nicholas just got kidnapped. Dun dun dun. Joseph shows up and starts muttering about how this wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody was supposed to get hurt because of his plan. Nancy and George ask Joseph, what is he talking about? What plan? And he runs away on the fire escape, more or less confirming he's the culprit. But we're gonna ignore that for 15 pages because Nicholas's kidnapping is more interesting. Hey, Bess has been kidnapped for 3 days already. She can wait a few more hours, right? Turns out that Bart Anderson kidnapped Nicholas in order to force a confession out of him. They catch Bart red-handed threatening to kill Nicholas. Nancy calls the police and ha-ha, just kidding. What happens is that Bart leaves the room while no one says or does anything to stop him. He comes back a few minutes later to announce he's moved up the demolition from 15 minutes from now with no take backsies. Oh no! Everyone rushes to the theater, just in time to see the wrecking ball destroy a wall. Nancy and friends run inside, where they chase after Joseph and force him to reveal Bess's location. Bess is rescued, Bart and Joseph get arrested for their crimes, and the theater is declared a historical landmark. Brady gives Bess some roses and a kiss. She thinks that's almost worth getting kidnapped over. Typical Bess. The end. Post-book follow-up. Once again, the culprit is the only person Nancy doesn't consider a suspect. She didn't really consider Deirdre to be much of a suspect either. Deirdre was more of a sympathetic character who's being forced to date Brady Armstrong. The inside cover says that she's suspicious because she has a jealous streak, and again, I have to wonder if the cover summary person just makes things up at random, or if they're writing about things which were originally in the book but got cut for one reason or another. This book marks the third appearance of Detective Ryan in this series. I think this officially qualifies him as a regular character. I know it seems kind of silly to say that someone who shows up once a year is a regular character, but hey, at least the series is trying to be consistent by assigning the same police officer to some of Nancy's cases. Continuity! I did not like Chapter 12 of this book, where the story takes a big turn and focuses on the theater blueprints. We also get a new suspect, Nicholas's grandfather Lewis. It felt really out of place to be introducing these new elements at the end of the book when the story is starting to wrap itself up. And sure enough, Lewis never appears again, the blueprints end up being irrelevant. I'd say either move that chapter to an earlier spot, which is what the game did, or just cut it completely. Overall, I didn't like this book very much because it repeated the same 4 ideas 3 times in a row, as I said in my recap. You could argue that the book tried to keep things fresh and change things up with the dramatic murder attempts, but we're definitely at the point in this series where someone tries to kill Nancy is so commonplace it no longer counts as exciting or different. The best part of this book was the second kidnapping with Nicholas, which did not make its way into the game. Her interactive, how could you leave out the best part of the book and replace it with calling the Library of Congress? I give Nancy Drew Files number 38, The Final Scene, a 4 out of 10.